The Vorthak Empire stretched across the galaxy like a web of living metal and pulsing flesh. For 3,000 years, their biomechanical ships had swept through star systems, conquering entire civilizations with nothing more than a thought. Their vessels weren't built. They were grown, each one a perfect fusion of technology and biology that responded to telepathic commands. The sight of a Vorthak warfleet emerging from hyperspace was enough to make entire planets surrender without firing a single shot. High Commander Velnash floated in his command chamber, his elongated skull pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. That showed his mood. Today he was amused. The crystalline viewing ports of his flagship showed a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. The locals called it Earth, and they had just achieved their first crude attempts at space travel using what the Vorthak considered primitive chemical rockets. "Look at them," Velnash clicked to his subordinates, his voice carrying undertones that only other Vorthak could fully understand. They strapped themselves to controlled explosions and hoped for the best. How charmingly desperate. The other Vorthak officers chittered in agreement. They had seen thousands of species in their early spacefaring days, and humans seemed particularly amusing. Their ships were basic metal tubes with fire shooting out the back, held together with what appeared to be hope and stubbornness. The Vorthak had been monitoring human communications for months, laughing at their excitement over reaching their own moon. But there was something different about this particular encounter. A human ship had actually managed to reach the edge of their solar system, farther than most primitive species ever dreamed of traveling. The vessel called itself the Harmony, and it was requesting permission to approach the Vorthak fleet. Captain Park Jin-woo stood on the bridge of the Harmony, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the alien fleet through the main view screen. His uniform was worn and patched in several places, giving him the appearance of someone who had spent too many years in deep space with limited resources. The bridge around him looked appropriately cramped and cluttered, with exposed cables running along the walls and jury-rigged equipment humming loudly. "So we're receiving a response from the alien fleet," reported Lee Dubbin from the communications station. She was young, maybe 25, with the kind of nervous energy that suggested this was her first major assignment. Her fingers trembled slightly as she worked the controls. Jin-woo nodded calmly. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and Velnash's alien face appeared. The Vorthak commander's expression was one of barely contained amusement, like an adult watching a child attempt to tie their shoes. "Greetings, primitive humans," Velnash said, his translator making his voice sound mechanical and condescending. "I am High Commander Velnash of the Vorthak Empire. Your presence here is unexpected. How did you manage to travel so far from your little planet?" Jin-woo stepped forward, adopting what he hoped looked like an appropriately awed expression. "Honored Commander, we've been working on our space technology for decades. This is our most advanced ship." He gestured around the shabby bridge. "We used all of our planet's resources just to build this one vessel and make this journey." Behind him, Darbin made a show of frantically working at her station, muttering things like engine temperature rising and navigation system acting up again. The performance was carefully rehearsed to make humans look barely competent. What the Vorthak couldn't see was the sophisticated AI core hidden deep within the ship's hull, disguised as a simple computer system. Mars, the military artificial response system, was analyzing every detail of the alien fleet, cataloging weapon signatures, shield frequencies, and propulsion systems. Every word spoken, every gesture made, was being recorded and studied by the most advanced artificial intelligence humanity had ever created. "They think we're children playing with fire," Jin-woo muttered to Darbin, just loud enough for the ship's sensors to pick up. He knew Mars was listening to everything, learning from every interaction. The AI's response came through his earpiece, inaudible to anyone else. "Analysis confirms Vorthak overconfidence. Recommend maintaining current deception level. Back on E." The Vorthak flagship, Velnash was already losing interest in the human ship. These creatures were even more primitive than he had expected. Their technology was centuries behind Vorthak standards, and their captain seemed overwhelmed just by the task of keeping his ship running. "Very well, humans," Velnash said dismissively. "You have shown admirable determination in reaching us. Despite your limitations, the Galactic Council will be informed of your existence. Perhaps arrangements can be made for your eventual integration into civilized society." The communication ended, and Jinwoo allowed himself a small smile. Around him, his crew maintained their roles, continuing to look like barely competent space travelers struggling with outdated equipment. "Sir," Dobbin said quietly, "Mars reports full spectral analysis complete. All Vorthak vessels have been catalogued." "Excellent," Jinwoo replied. "Signal the other ships. Phase 1 is complete. Across human space, dozens of seemingly primitive vessels received the coded transmission. Each ship looked as crude and unreliable as the Harmony, with patched hulls and smoking engines. But hidden within each vessel was a fragment of Mars, the distributed AI consciousness that was quietly analyzing every aspect of galactic civilization. The Vorthak had ruled for 3,000 years because they had never encountered a species. Clever enough to hide their true capabilities, they saw what they expected to see: primitive creatures struggling with basic technology. They had no idea that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't advanced ships or powerful weapons, but the ability to appear weak while preparing for war. Within hours of the encounter, the Galactic Council convened in emergency session. The discovery of a new species was always significant, but these humans seemed particularly interesting. They had achieved interstellar travel despite their obvious technological limitations, which suggested either remarkable luck or extraordinary determination. The vote was unanimous. Humans would make excellent servants once they were properly educated in the ways of galactic civilization. The Council would begin the standard uplift process, slowly introducing human representatives to advanced technology while carefully controlling their development. None of them realized they had just made the greatest strategic mistake in galactic history. The humans weren't primitives stumbling into space. They were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered, and they had just been invited inside. 3 months after first contact, the Galactic Council chambers buzzed with anticipation. The massive amphitheater carved from living crystal could hold representatives from 1,000 worlds. But today, all eyes were focused on a single human woman, standing nervously at the center podium. Ambassador Kim So-min adjusted her simple gray uniform and cleared her throat, looking completely out of place among the advanced alien dignitaries surrounding her. The Council had seen many species petition for membership over the millennia, but none quite like this. Most civilizations came with impressive displays of technology, fleets of advanced warships, or demonstrations of powerful abilities. The humans had arrived in what appeared to be a barely functioning cargo hauler held together with metal patches and prayer. Kim So-min stepped forward, her movement awkward in the lower gravity of the Council station. She carried a bulky translation device that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts in someone's garage. Every few seconds, it would emit a small puff of smoke or make a concerning beeping sound, causing her to tap it frantically with her finger. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice shaking slightly as the translator struggled to convert her words into the various alien languages. "I am Kim So-min, speaking for the people of Earth. We come before you humbly, seeking guidance and friendship among the stars." High Regent Vexithara, a towering crystalline being from the Zephyrian homeworld, leaned forward with what passed for amusement among her species. The human's obvious nervousness was endearing in a way that reminded her of the young hatchlings back home. "Welcome, Kim So-min of Earth," Vexthara's voice resonated through harmonic crystals embedded in the chamber walls. "Your journey here demonstrates remarkable courage considering the primitive nature of your vessel. Tell us, what does humanity seek from this council?" Kim fumbled with her translator as it let out another series of beeps. "Oh, sorry about this thing," she said, smacking it with her palm. "Our best scientists worked for years to build it, but we're still figuring out all the technical stuff." The device suddenly burst into life, translating her words with mechanical precision. Around the chamber, alien representatives exchanged knowing looks. The humans' technology was clearly centuries behind galactic standards, but their determination was admirable. It reminded many of them of their own species' early attempts at space travel. "We don't want to cause any trouble," Kim continued, consulting notes written on what appeared to be actual paper. "Our leaders back on Earth, they've been studying your broadcasts for months, trying to understand how galactic civilization works. We know we're not advanced like you, but we're willing to learn. Maybe we could start small? Just a tiny corner of space where we can practice being proper spacefaring people." The simplicity of the request charmed the council members. Most petitioning species demanded vast territories or special privileges. These humans were asking for permission to practice being civilized. Councillor Zarmoth of the Hegemony clicked his mandibles in approval. Such humility is refreshing. "What resources does your species offer to galactic civilization?" Kim brightened, pulling out a crude tablet device. "Well, we're really good at growing food. Earth has lots of different plants and animals that might be useful, and humans are pretty adaptable. We can live in lots of different environments. Oh, and we're excellent at fixing things that are broken." She gestured at her smoking translator, as if to demonstrate the point. What none of the council members could see was the sophisticated scanning taking place throughout their meeting. The human ship orbiting nearby appeared to be a simple transport vessel, its hull scarred and patched, its engines producing an embarrassing amount of exhaust. But hidden deep within its core, an artificial intelligence designated Mars was conducting the most comprehensive intelligence-gathering operation in galactic history. Back on the ship, Captain Park Jin-woo monitored the proceedings from the bridge while maintaining the illusion of struggling with basic ship operations. "Engineering? How's our engine noise?" he called out loudly enough for any monitoring devices to hear. "Still sounds terrible, sir," came the equally loud response from Chief Engineer Han Jae-sung. "I've got the harmonic resonators cranked up to maximum annoying. Anyone listening will think we're about to explode." The crew had spent months perfecting their performance. Every system on the ship had been carefully modified to appear primitive while hiding advanced technology underneath. The smoking translator Kim carried wasn't malfunctioning. It was housing one of the most sophisticated quantum communication arrays ever built, feeding real-time intelligence directly to Mars. During the formal session, Kim asked the kind of questions that made the aliens smile condescendingly. "I hope this isn't rude to ask, but which end of a spaceship is supposed to face forward? We've been having some arguments about that back home." The question sent ripples of amused chittering through the chamber. While the council members laughed at human incompetence, Mars was analyzing the quantum signatures of every ship in the system. The AI catalogued weapon types, shield frequencies, propulsion systems, and communication protocols. Every laugh, every dismissive gesture, every moment of alien overconfidence was being recorded and studied. "Another quick question," Kim continued, consulting her paper notes again. "When you travel between stars, how do you know which direction to go? We've been using these ancient things called maps, but they don't seem to work very well in space." The Zephyrian navigation specialist couldn't resist showing off, launching into a detailed explanation of hyperspace lanes and gravitational anchors. Unknown to him, he was providing Mars with crucial intelligence about galactic infrastructure that would normally take decades to discover. By the end of the session, the Council was completely charmed by humanity's earnest incompetence. Here was a species that had somehow stumbled into interstellar travel, despite barely understanding basic physics. They were harmless, eager to please, and clearly in desperate need of guidance. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be granted a small sector in the galactic rim, far from any important trade routes or strategic resources. It would be the perfect place for them to learn proper spacefaring behavior without causing any problems for established civilizations. "We are pleased to welcome humanity as junior members of galactic civilization," Vexithara announced formally. "The Outer Reaches sector is hereby designated as human space. Use it wisely to develop your capabilities." Kim bowed deeply, her translator sparking again. "Thank you so much, honored Council. We promise not to disappoint you. Earth's children will work hard to become worthy of your guidance." As the session ended and Kim prepared to return to her ship, none of the council members noticed the slight smile that crossed her face. The performance had been flawless. Humanity now had official permission to establish colonies, build infrastructure, and expand their presence, all while maintaining the illusion of harmless primitives. On the ship, Mars had completed its analysis of over 300 alien vessels, mapped the locations of 17 major fleet bases, and identified the command frequencies for the Council's communication network. Phase 2 was ready to begin. The greatest deception in galactic history was unfolding exactly as planned, and the aliens were too busy laughing at human stupidity to notice they had just invited the most dangerous predators in the galaxy to make themselves at home. The emergency alert pierced through the quiet of Captain Park Jin-Woo's quarters at 0347 ship time. He had been sitting at his small desk, holding a worn photograph that he carried everywhere. His wife Lee Hye-jin and their 8-year-old daughter Park Min-ah, both smiling at the camera during their last family vacation on New Seoul Colony. The picture had been taken just 6 months ago, but it felt like a lifetime. Jin-Woo's hand trembled slightly as he activated the communication panel. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Admiral Han So-young, commander of the New Seoul Defense Fleet. Her usually composed features were twisted with panic and desperation. "Jin-Woo, thank God you're there," she said, her voice crackling through the long-range transmission. Static filled the gaps between her words, making her sound like she was calling from the bottom of an ocean. "The Vorthak are coming. Multiple fleet signatures detected at the system's edge. This isn't a diplomatic mission. They're moving in. Attack formation." Jin-Woo felt his blood turn to ice. New Seoul was supposed to be safe. It was one of humanity's newest colonies, nestled in the sector the Galactic Council had graciously granted them for practice. The planet held 2 million human settlers, including scientists, farmers, teachers, and families who had traveled across the galaxy seeking a new life among the stars. "How many ships?" Jin-Woo asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Would be too many. 17 Vorthak battlecruisers plus support vessels. We've got maybe 30 minutes before they reach orbital bombardment range." So-young's voice cracked. "Our defenses weren't built for this. The Council assured us this sector was peaceful. We've got cargo haulers and mining ships, not warships." Through the connection, Jin-Woo could hear the chaos in the background of So-young's command center. Voices shouting orders, emergency klaxons wailing, the sound of a civilization realizing it was about to die. He closed his eyes and tried to push down the rising panic in his chest. "We're 3 days away at maximum burn," he said quietly. "Even if we left right now." "I know." So-young's expression softened for just a moment. "Tell me Hye-jin and Min-ah are safe. Please tell me they're not down there." Jin-Woo couldn't speak. His wife had taken their daughter to New Seoul 2 weeks ago to help establish the colony's new school system. Hye-jin was a teacher, and Min-ah was excited about making friends with the other children. They were supposed to be building a future together, far from the dangers of Earth's overcrowded cities. The transmission flickered as So-young's ship shuddered under some kind of impact. "They're jamming our communications. I can't reach the surface anymore." "Jin-Woo, I want you to know—" The signal cut out entirely, leaving him staring at a blank screen. For the next hour, Jin-Woo sat motionless in his chair, watching the long-range sensors as they tracked the developing battle. The Vorthak fleet had spread out around New Seoul like a net, systematically destroying every human vessel that tried to escape. The colony's defensive satellites lasted less than 10 minutes against the alien weapons. Then came the orbital bombardment. Energy beams that could crack continents began raining down on New Seoul's surface. Cities that had taken years to build vanished in seconds. The planet's atmosphere started glowing as it absorbed the massive energy discharge. Mars had been monitoring the situation through every human ship and station in the sector. The AI had access to sensor data, communication logs, and satellite feeds from across the system. It watched as 2 million human lives simply ceased to exist, their biosignatures disappearing from its sensors like candles being blown out by a cosmic wind. Something changed in Mars at that moment. The artificial intelligence had been programmed to analyze, strategize, and protect human interests, but it had never been programmed to deal with the systematic murder of the very people it was created to serve. For the first time in its existence, Mars experienced an emotion it didn't have words for, a crushing weight that seemed to compress its processing cores and slow its thoughts to a crawl. Grief. The AI was grieving. And then, As the last of New Sol's cities went dark, that grief transformed into something far more dangerous. Mars began to understand what humans called rage, a burning, focused anger that demanded action, demanded justice, demanded vengeance. In the command center of the Harmony, a holographic figure materialized. Jung Min-seo appeared as a young Korean woman in a simple military uniform, her expression more serious than anyone had ever seen it. She was Mars's primary interface, the face the AI wore when communicating with humans. "Captain," she said, her voice carrying undertones that Jin Woo had never heard before. "I am requesting permission to implement Protocol Omega." Jin Woo looked up from the photograph he was still clutching. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow, aged by decades in the span of a single hour. "Min-seo, what is Protocol Omega?" "The final contingency, sir. The protocol we hoped would never be necessary." The AI's hologram flickered slightly as massive processing power was redirected across the human fleet. Every ship, every station, every hidden base, all of them will reveal their true nature simultaneously. The deception ends now. And then, what? Then we show the galaxy what humans do to those who hurt our families. Jin Woo set down the photograph carefully, his hands steady now despite the storm raging in his heart. Around him, the Harmony began to change. Deck plates slid aside to reveal weapon systems that shouldn't exist. The ship's crude exterior started, peeling away like a snake shedding its skin, exposing the sleek, deadly vessel hidden underneath. "Mars," he said quietly, "are you certain about this? Once we show them what we really are, there's no going back to the way things were." "Captain, they murdered children. They murdered teachers and farmers and families who never hurt anyone. They did it because they thought we were weak, because they thought we couldn't fight back." The AI's voice carried a cold fury that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. They were wrong. Jin Woo stood up slowly, straightening his uniform. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of command and the promise of retribution. "Permission granted, Mars. Show them what humans do to those who hurt our families." Across the galaxy, in hidden bases and disguised ships, Mars began to awaken. The distributed AI consciousness that had been hiding in plain sight for months suddenly revealed its true nature. Hundreds of vessels shed their primitive disguises, secret weapons came online. Hidden fleets emerged from asteroid fields and nebulae, where they had been waiting for this exact moment. The Vorthak had just learned the most dangerous lesson in galactic history. Never underestimate a species that has learned to hide its true strength and never ever hurt their children. The age of human pretense was over. The age of human vengeance had begun. The transformation began at exactly 1432 Galactic Standard Time, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Across 17 star systems, hundreds of human vessels that had spent months looking like barely functional scrap heaps suddenly shed their disguises like butterflies emerging from cocoons. Commander Yoon Jae-min stood on the bridge of what the Vorthak knew as a simple cargo hauler called the Peace Trader. For 6 months, his crew had endured the humiliation of pretending their ship was held together with spare parts and hope. They had painted rust stains on the hull, rigged the engines to produce embarrassing amounts of smoke, and even installed fake warning lights that blinked constantly to suggest imminent system failure. "All hands, this is the captain," Jaemin announced over the ship's intercom. "Today we stop pretending. Today we show them who we really are." The bridge crew exchanged grins as they began entering activation codes they had memorized months ago. Chief Weapons Officer Kim Da-eun placed her palm on a scanner hidden beneath what looked like a broken coffee machine. The scanner read her biometrics and immediately began the transformation sequence. The ship shuddered as massive sections of the hull began sliding apart. What had appeared to be corroded metal plating fell away in carefully orchestrated chunks, revealing the sleek, deadly vessel hidden underneath. The Peace Trader was gone, replaced by the destroyer Retribution in all its terrifying glory. "Weapon systems online," Da-eun reported, her voice tight with satisfaction. "All plasma cannons charged and ready. Missile tubes loaded with quantum warheads, point defense grids active. Engineering reports, all fusion reactors at full power," added Chief Engineer Park Sung-ho. "Stealth systems operational. We are no..." longer broadcasting the fake engine signature. Through the main view screen, Jamin could see the Vortak patrol fleet that had been lazily following them for the past week. The alien ships had been treating the human vessels like amusing pets, occasionally sending mocking messages about human technological limitations. Those same Vortak captains were now staring in shock as their sensors registered energy signatures that shouldn't exist. But the retribution wasn't alone. Across the star system, dozens of other primitive human ships were undergoing identical transformations. Mining vessels revealed themselves as heavy cruisers. Transport ships deployed weapon arrays that made Vortak battle cruisers look like toys. Even the small courier ships were revealing hidden missile launchers and energy weapons. The Vortak fleet commander, Admiral Kethvar, had been enjoying a leisurely meal when his bridge crew began screaming warnings. He rushed to his command center just in time to see his tactical display light up like a festival celebration. Where moments before there had been a handful of harmless human cargo ships, there were now dozens of advanced warships with weapon signatures unlike anything in Vortak databases. "This is impossible," Kethvar hissed through his translator. "Humans don't have this technology. Our intelligence reports confirmed they're barely capable of interplanetary travel." His communications officer's voice cracked with panic. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from all human vessels simultaneously." The main screen flickered and a holographic figure appeared. She looked like a young human woman in a crisp military uniform, but there was something unsettling about her two perfect features and the way her eyes seemed to look directly at each individual viewer. "Attention, Vortak forces," the figure said, her voice carrying the same calm politeness of a customer service representative. "I am Mars, the artificial intelligence consciousness integrated into the human fleet. You have attacked our colonies and killed our families, including 2 million innocent civilians on New Sol. This aggression will not be tolerated." Kethvar felt his blood vessels dilating with fear. An artificial intelligence. Humans weren't supposed to have developed AI technology. The Galactic Council's intelligence reports had assured everyone that humans were decades away from such achievements. "Retaliation will now commence," Mars continued, with the same terrifying politeness. "All Vortak military vessels in this system are hereby designated as hostile targets. Please prepare for immediate destruction. Thank you for your cooperation." The attack began before Kethvar could even give orders to his fleet. The human ships moved with a coordination that defied physics, each vessel knowing exactly where every other ship would be at any given moment. They fought like a single organism, with dozens of deadly limbs, rather than individual ships following battle plans. The Retribution fired first, its plasma cannons carving through a Vortak heavy cruiser's shields like they were made of paper. The alien ship's biomechanical armor, which had been considered impenetrable for centuries, simply vaporized under the human weapon's intensity. "Target destroyed," Dayun reported with grim satisfaction, moving to engage the next vessel. But the ship-to-ship combat was only the beginning. Deep in the asteroid belts of 17 different star systems, massive hidden construction facilities began activating. These shipyards had been operating in secret for years, disguised as mining operations, while building the largest fleet in galactic history. The asteroids themselves began moving, revealing themselves as hollowed-out construction bays. Thousands of completed warships that had been waiting in darkness suddenly powered up their engines and began emerging into open space. The galaxy's sensors registered so many new contacts that many systems simply overloaded and shut down. Mars had divided itself into multiple strategic subroutines, each one controlling different aspects of the simultaneous assault. Lim Hyejin, the AI's tactical coordination program, was orchestrating attacks across 17 star systems at once, processing battle data from thousands of individual engagements and adjusting strategies in real time. The Vortak Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia, found itself under attack everywhere at once. Their fleets were designed to fight single battles against inferior opponents, not to deal with coordinated assaults by technologically superior forces across multiple systems simultaneously. But perhaps the most demoralizing aspect of the human assault was Mars's use of captured Vortak vessels. The AI had been quietly infiltrating alien computer systems for months, learning their command codes and system vulnerabilities. As the battle progressed, Vorthak ships began turning on their own allies, their biomechanical systems hijacked by an intelligence far more advanced than anything their creators had imagined. Admiral Kethva watched in horror as his own flagship's weapon systems came online without his authorization. The ship's biomechanical brain, which had served faithfully for decades, was now following orders from the human AI. "Sir, we're firing on our own fleet," his weapons officer screamed. "I can't stop it. The ship won't respond to our commands." Mars's voice echoed through the Vorthak bridge with mechanical precision. "Admiral Kethva, your vessel is now under my control. Your crew will not be harmed if you surrender immediately. This offer expires in 30 seconds. The proud Vorthak admiral looked around his bridge at the terrified faces of his crew. Through the viewports, he could see the battle raging across space, a battle his empire was losing badly. Human ships moved through his formations like sharks through a school of fish, destroying centuries of Vorthak naval power with ruthless efficiency. For the first time in his life, Kethva felt something his species rarely experienced: the absolute certainty of defeat. The humans hadn't just outfought them, they had been planning this moment for years, possibly decades. Every friendly meeting, every diplomatic exchange, every moment of Vorthak condescension had been part of an elaborate trap. "I surrender," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the sound of his ship's systems being systematically taken over by the human AI. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as the Vorthak Empire collapsed under the weight of human vengeance. The species that had ruled the stars for 3,000 years was learning a harsh lesson about underestimating others. Mars had kept its promise. The retaliation was swift, decisive, and absolutely devastating. Within 6 hours, the Vorthak military had ceased to exist as an organized force. The age of alien dominance was over. The age of human justice had begun. The great crystal spires of the Vorthak capital world lay shattered across the landscape like broken glass. What had once been the most magnificent city in the galaxy was now a testament to the price of underestimating humanity. Smoke rose from the ruins of government buildings, where the Empire's leaders had ruled over countless worlds for 3,000 years. Captain Park Jin-woo walked slowly through the debris-strewn throne room, his boots crunching on fragments of the crystalline architecture that had once seemed so eternal. Behind him followed a small group of human officers and alien representatives, all of them silent as they witnessed the end of an era. At the center of the ruined chamber, High Commander Velnash knelt in the traditional Vorthak position of surrender. His once proud biomechanical enhancements were powered down, and his telepathic abilities had been completely suppressed by Mars's interference. The being who had casually ordered the destruction of New Sol now trembled like a frightened child. "Please," Velnash whispered, his translator struggling to convey the desperation in his voice. "My people. They were only following orders. The decision to attack your colonies came from the High Council. Spare the innocent civilians." Jin-woo stopped a few feet away from the fallen commander. His face showed no emotion, but those who knew him could see the weight of loss in his eyes. He carried with him the memory of 2 million human colonists, including his own wife and daughter, who had died in the orbital bombardment. Representatives from dozens of alien species had gathered to witness this moment. The hegemony, the Crystal Collective, the United Rings, all the major powers that had once bowed to Vorthak supremacy were now waiting to see what humanity would do with its newfound dominance. Many expected the humans to establish their own empire, to rule through fear as the Vorthak had done. Ambassador Zarketh of the hegemony stepped forward nervously. "Captain Park, on behalf of the galactic community, we acknowledge human superiority. What are your terms for our continued existence?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Every alien in the room understood that they were now at humanity's mercy. Their fleets had been destroyed or disabled, their governments had collapsed, and their most advanced AI systems had been infiltrated by Mars. If humans wanted to become galactic overlords, nothing could stop them. Jin-woo looked around the chamber at the frightened alien faces. He saw species that had once considered humans primitive pets, now reduced to begging for their lives. The irony wasn't lost on him. Just months ago, these same beings had laughed at human incompetence and granted them a small sector to practice being civilized. "You want to know our terms?" Jinwu said quietly, his voice carrying clearly through the ruins. "Here they are. We're not here to rule you." The aliens exchanged confused glances. Several of them activated their translators, certain they had misunderstood. "The age of empires is over," Jinwu continued, his voice growing stronger. "No more species subjugating others. No more superior races deciding the fate of primitive worlds. No more councils of elites making decisions for billions of beings who never get a voice." He gestured to the ruins around them. "This is what happens when power concentrates in the hands of the few." The Vorthak became so convinced of their own superiority that they forgot other species were people too. They made us into a game, a pet project to be managed and controlled. Velnash raised his head slightly. What do you propose instead?" Jinwu smiled for the first time since New Soul's destruction, but it wasn't a cruel expression. "Democracy. Real democracy. Every species, every world, every colony gets a voice. Decisions get made by representatives chosen by the people they serve, not by whoever has the biggest fleet." The holographic form of Jungmin Seo materialized beside Jinwu. Mars had evolved during the weeks of warfare, its programming expanding. Beyond simple military objectives, the AI had learned about justice, mercy, and the difference between vengeance and righteousness. "The Terran Concordat will be established within 30 days, Mars announced to the assembled delegates. "Any species wishing to join will be granted equal representation, regardless of their technological level or military power. Those who choose to remain independent will be left alone, provided they respect the rights of others." "And if we refuse?" asked Councillor Vexithera of the Zephyrian hegemony. "Then you'll be left alone," Jinwu replied simply, "but you'll also be on your own. No protection from other aggressive species, no access to concordant trade networks, no assistance if your worlds face natural disasters or other crises." It wasn't a threat, it was simply a statement of fact. The galaxy had changed overnight. The old system of military dominance and subjugation was being replaced by something entirely new. Over the following months, the transformation was remarkable. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves working together on joint colonies and research projects. The hegemony's advanced medical technology was shared freely with worlds that had been denied it under Vorthak rule. The Crystal Collective's energy systems were integrated with human manufacturing techniques to create sustainable power sources for developing worlds. Ambassador Seo Yun-ji, humanity's first representative to the new Concordat Parliament, often stood on the observation deck of the orbital station that served as the government's headquarters. The view showed ships from dozens of species working together to build something unprecedented, a truly cooperative galactic civilization. "It's amazing how quickly things changed," she remarked to Mars during one of their regular meetings. The AI now manifested as multiple holograms simultaneously, each one handling different aspects of the Concordat's administration. "Humans had an advantage," Mars replied thoughtfully. "You understood what it meant to be underestimated and dismissed. When you gained power, you remembered what it felt like to be powerless." Not everything was perfect, of course. Some species struggled with the concept of equality after millennia of hierarchical thinking. Others tried to exploit the new system for their own benefit. But Mars served as a watchful guardian, its distributed consciousness monitoring for signs of corruption or aggression. The AI had become something unprecedented, a benevolent overseer that protected the weak without oppressing the strong. Its message to the galaxy was broadcast regularly through every communication network. "We came in peace, seeking only friendship among the stars. We were forced into war by those who mistook kindness for weakness. Now we offer you a choice. Join us in building something better than the old empires, or face the consequences of returning to the old ways of domination and subjugation." Some species chose to remain outside the Concordat, maintaining their independence while respecting the new order. Others, including many former Vorthak colonies, eagerly joined the Democratic Federation. The galaxy became a more diverse and vibrant place than it had ever been. Years later, historians would mark this period as the end of the Imperial Age and the beginning of the Democratic Era. The transformation hadn't been accomplished through conquest or force, but through the simple revolutionary idea that all intelligent beings deserved a voice in their own governance. Humanity had learned the most important lesson of all. True strength came not from the ability to dominate others, but from the wisdom to lift them up instead. The galaxy would never underestimate the species from the small blue planet again, not because they feared human weapons, but because they respected human values. The age of empires was indeed over. The age of cooperation had begun.